Good morning, everyone. This is Nikachu, Merfolk Master, and get ready because it is day, what are we at, like 57 of Coffee and MTG, you with none other than myself, Nikachu. Oh my god, let's have a great conversation about Magic. Let us talk. Bring on the questions. I've got the answers, and we're also going to do Decklist review as usual. Let's grab yourself a cup of Magic, whether it's the morning, afternoon, or evening. It's always the time to grab yourself a cup of Magic, and let's have a great conversation about Magic as we do every single morning. I can see we've got the early fish gets the bugs or something. Yeah, I know. Like the early bird gets the worm. I think there's a lot of early stuff that gets the fish, but at some point, the early fish will eat something. So good morning, Kyoka620. Good morning, Snuffaluffa Fish. Good morning, Tuxdev. Good morning, Mikey J. What's up, Matt Maddock? And good morning, Stream Team. Yes, good morning, Dexter Johnson. So yeah, let's us grab a cup of coffee and let's have a wonderful morning. I got my coffee. If I don't have my coffee, nothing's going to be working. Oh, Tuxdev just subscribed for 2 months in a row. So you were already subscribed, Tuxdev. I didn't even know that. How did he? Oh, I see. You were gifted the sub from Thomas T1980. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Thomas. Where's my? Thank you very much for gifting the sub. I'm sure Tuxdev appreciates it. Yeah, that's right. You do have a sub because I see you in the Discord, Tuxdev. Of course. Thank you very much, Thomas, for being so generous. Sharing the love around everywhere. Hello, good morning, Thomas. I got my iced black coffee. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of like iced coffee, frappuccinos, stuff like that. I don't have one myself today, but I am a huge fan of like the iced caffeinated drinks. Absolutely love them. Gives me a huge rush. I can't say it like relaxes me, but gives me a big rush. Love it. Showing off them emotes. I got to get more emotes. Emotes going to be on the way. I've been pretty busy. A lot of things happening lately. Good morning, Lord Magicus. Well, I got kicked out of most of the Discord. I was kind of curious if Discord would catch up to a sub expiring properly or not. So what happens, as far as I'm concerned, on Twitch is that they give you like 5 days to resub, and then you get kicked out. They actually give me the option to give like a I don't know, a latency period, so that you have some opportunity to resub, and so you don't get like automatically kicked out. So you can be late by a few days, and I think I have mine set at like I don't know, 5 days or something like that. 3 or 5 days. Good morning, Siege Sensei. Good morning, Vasilevs. I just put the ice cubes in my black coffee, budget coffee here. Oh, hey, I've done the same thing. I took the advice that I got on this show, where you basically you take the coffee, you boil the water, then you just put enough boiled water so that the grounds have dissolved, and then you just fill it with ice, and then top it up with like milk, and boom, you got iced coffee. It works. What can I say? It works. Good morning, Chow Zamba. Mikey J says, let's talk about surgical extraction. I feel like this is a card not as good as it used to be, and should we play Fairy Macabre instead now that Phoenix isn't running rampant? So like the deal is like, I don't think there are many decks that can use surgical extraction right now. I don't think it's that good. I think it's fine in the right archetype. Like, for example, in maybe Prowess might want to use this sort of card because they get a free card that they can get Prowess off of. Like, maybe. That's stretching it. Definitely Death Shadow could utilize this card. But for the most part, I mean, there's like only one deck I would want surgical extraction for, and that's Dredge. For the most part, I don't think it's worth getting. It's just not the best for most archetypes. Like if speaking from a Merfolk standpoint, from a Merfolk point of view, I don't think this is good enough. Let's talk about Fairy Macabre. It's this is an underutilized card. For example, like even from the Merfolk perspective, we can vial this in play. So in theory, it's not even a dead card all the time. If you have no target, because it's just free removal basically for the graveyard. Exile up to 2 target cards from a graveyard with flying. But I don't know if this is any better than, say, Relic of Progenitus, and it's certainly not more powerful than Grafdigger's Cage. So if I play Fairy Macabre against Dredge, okay, I slow them down for a turn, and actually I really like that I'm doing this at instant speed. But then if I'm talking about just one-on-one, I don't know if Fairy Macabre is good enough against every other deck. That's what I'm saying. Like, to hit an Uro, is that really good value? To hit like the thing that they target with Mystic Sanctuary, is that good value? Probably not, because it is definitely card disadvantage. So if I am bringing this in against Dredge, that's when I would want to reach for Surgical Extraction. So there are definitely options on the table, but I don't know if either of them are particularly well positioned. Although if I was playing blue-black Merfolk, I would definitely start thinking more about Fairy Macabre. Interesting question. Good stuff to think about. It's always good to revisit old cards because you never know when they're going to be good again. Like I always revisit old things that I have in mind. I was revisiting like Damping Matrix for the longest time, and now it's reasonably positioned. You know, this is a card that, you know, I knew existed for a long time. It was just worthless, and now it's like it's okay. Maybe not. Well, I don't know about now. Pre-Astrolabe, it was okay because you know you could bring this in against Urza, shuts down Urza, shuts down Emery, and engineered explosives and like everything. But now I don't know. Now I don't know. Good morning, Kiosk 14. Morning, Monster CC. Good morning, Niels Nielsen. Morning, Lorang Sushi. Why don't you think Jund plays Derminate? You mean Terminate? Or external? Like what are we talking about here? Terminate? Well, first off, they do. I'm pretty sure they do. They may not play a lot of copies of this card, but they do definitely play copies of Terminate. It's but if a version if Jund is not playing many copies of this, it's mainly because there's just better options. I mean, Abrupt Decay does what Terminate does most of the time, except it's uncounterable. No, so especially against like a Stoneforge Mystic deck, you would most definitely want to have Abrupt Decay over this. Terminate, well, I'll tell you this much. Terminate used to be more popular before, what's it called? Assassin's Trophy was printed, because now Assassin's Trophy is just literally what Terminate used to do, because Terminate used to be the go-to card to kill a Primeval Titan, for example, but now you can do the same thing with Assassin's Trophy. Oh yeah, Decklist review is we still do Decklist reviews, but just for anyone who wants to know, on this show we do Q&A first for the first 30 minutes, then we follow it up with Decklist review. So right now we're in the Q&A. Any new spoilers? I do not know. If anyone has any stuff to share, just let me know, and I'll definitely post it up to everybody. But I think Assassin's Trophy basically took a lot of the wind out of the sails from Terminate, because anything that you would want to kill with Terminate, you could do with Assassin's Trophy. But Assassin's Trophy just hits everything, right? It's you destroy target permanent, so you can hit lands, you can hit enchantments, you can hit artifacts, you can hit planeswalkers. So I actually didn't notice that there is no Terminates, but now that I think about it, it's probably, if there are no Terminates, because of Assassin's Trophy. Assassin's Trophy is just like a far superior card by all means. And, you know, like for the most part, like Terminate is just a 1-for-1 removal spell. Yeah, overall, that's what Jund does, but like they have to scale with a little bit more value somehow. So they do try to do things like play with Kolaghan's Command or Abrupt Decay, where it's a little, it's uncounterable. We'll just say that. I love firing off Macabre when Storm gifts me. Is it good there? You only hit 2 cards. You only hit 2 cards, and you don't get priority again after the spell resolves. So if they put, say, Past in Flames in the graveyard, and they can cast it on the same turn, that's not good. Or unless you're talking about they play Gift Storm at end of turn and they need to untap. Oh yeah, okay, I gotcha. That does make sense. Hi, a bit late. Yeah, I know. I'm a bit late. Well, the thing is, like, so with enough people here, love to. I was setting a lot of stuff up, but I'd love to talk about my new sponsor, Mana Traders. I am now being sponsored by Mana Traders, the premier place to rent cards online. And if you sign up with the coupon code Nikachu, you get 20% off your first 3 months. So I think we're also going to be probably participating in the Mana Trader series, which I wasn't focused on much at all, but now I'm going to look into it because it's actually really good. As far as I got to look more into it, but it's like really good value. It's like it's a free tournament, but then if you're signed up to Mana Traders, they like multiply the amount that you make in your prizes. So like that's also great. Who doesn't like stuff for free? Who doesn't like stuff for free? So anyway, Mana Traders is now being our sponsor. I love the colors. Look too. It's like coffee colors. Great for coffee and MTG. So anyway, thank you very much, Mana Traders. And yes, so new sponsor, very exciting. But do they sell coffee? That is a question that we're all still asking ourselves. Still looking for a coffee sponsor if there's any if there's any more sponsors out there. Because a certain brand name of coffee just didn't have anything to offer me at the moment. Nothing to offer at the moment. All right, so yeah, Kiosk, Trophy and Decay are better than Terminate most of the time. There was a time where Terminate did fill in some gaps, like it killed Primeval Titan. Oh, I can't remember what else. There was like one other really important card. Not coming to my mind, but I guess it's like anything 4 mana or higher. Snuffleupafish. Hey, do you think Mutavault or Cavernous Souls will be in Double Masters? If so, do you think they'll get some alternate art, Borderless Love in Double Masters? I mean, I have no idea. I have not been either sneaked any preview of anything in there. I do not have any information from Wizards of the Coast, so I know as much as all of you do. Because is it possible? Maybe. Anything is possible. And I would say if they did print Mutavault or Cavernous Souls, it would come with alternate art. Definitely the Cavernous Souls. Maybe not the Mutavault, but probably the Mutavault. Definitely the Cavernous Souls would have alternate art if they were to reprint it in Double Masters. Flat Nose, what version of the deck do you think is better positioned right now? I'm doing terrible in events lately, and I'm going crazy trying to figure what to play. So probably by default, the best version is mono blue, and probably with a 1-drop so that you still can like race some decks. But I'm not doing that much better myself. I'm going to be trying Coco Folk again today, but I'm going to add Hypnotic Sprite to the deck because I was very impressed with Hypnotic Sprite in mono blue, and I want to see if I can utilize it in the Coco deck so I have a little bit more threat density, more room to counter some stuff, and also it's just a random target I could hit with Collected Company, so we've increased the number of creatures in the deck. But I'm still grinding away to find like the best version. But so far, I think I've heard enough people say they're going like 4/1s with mono blue, so mono blue is like reasonably positioned. My biggest problem is with Merfolk, I don't know which matchups I want to give up yet. So at the moment, when I say I'm going to play Simic Merfolk with Collected Company, I'm basically saying I'm just gonna lose to the Blood Moon decks, specifically Red Green Ponza. I don't really want to do that. It's a very popular deck, but yeah, that's just the concession I'm gonna make. And it's tough though because I'm not really doing very good against the attrition-based decks either, so I need to pull some weight there. It's tough. It's tough. I don't know exactly which one's the best yet, but as the meta settles, hopefully something will pop up. I'm still tinkering around with stuff. I'm not doing terrible, but I'm not doing great. That's my position right now. I'm like just going 3-2 a lot. Not many 2-3s, not many like 4/1s. A lot of 3-2s personally. Nikachu, how do you think about spirits in the current meta? It's okay. It's okay. I mean, I think it's in a very similar position as Merfolk. It is better in interaction, but it's worse in resiliency to Plague Engineer. Plague Engineer really wipes that deck out like worse than it does to Merfolk, because there's a lot of 1 toughness creatures that can't hold their own. Things like Mausoleum Wanderer and Rattle Change and Selfless Spirit and etc. So a lot of vulnerable targets to Plague Engineer. But I think it's fine in an underrated deck in Modern. Like it should have more presence in Modern than it does. How is Merfolk positioned against the new Gruul deck? Well, it depends which one you're talking about, because Mono Blue is good. All right, Master of Waves is still very good against that deck. You just have some random creatures out and you slam Master of Waves. That's very strong. They still can't beat that. But in Simic, you don't have Master of Waves, and your mana base sucks to like Magus of the Moon and Choke. They hit you on both angles. So you can't really win either way. So it's that it's a very difficult matchup. And of course, they can like find these things off of Bloodbraid Elf, which is just brutal and very annoying. Whereas Mono Blue has a good balance of what can be Blood Mooned and what can be choked. So I think that deck is like significantly better positioned against the Gruul deck. And it's not new. It's been around for a while. Good morning, Eden. Do you think Dimir Mill can ever be tier 1 deck in Modern? Yes. Yes, I do think so. I think Dimir Mill has proven that it can become something. And in my opinion, if a deck can become something, like anything, it has the opportunity of becoming like a really big deck. Really great example is Boggles. Like, I always can't remember how to spell Boggle correctly. So the deal with Boggles is it was always around. It had like good, it had like, it was a deck, right? A lot of people might say it was like a pony deck, but fact of the matter is, it was just like 8 cards away from becoming great. Just like 8 cards away. And then there was this great innovation of putting Leyline of Sanctity in the main deck, solving a bunch of problems like Liliana the Veil edicting you, Thoughtseize or Inquisition taking your one threat in your hand. And once this innovation was found, and there was some other change, like they gutted some particular core cards for something else. I can't remember how they mixed the deck, how they shook up the deck, but then it started winning. Like, and what's his name? Budakov won the Magic Online Championship with Boggles. So like it was tier 1 for a good solid few months until like the metagame properly adjusted to it. So I think any deck that can get like, if you can get to tier 3, then tier 1 is like maybe you're 8 cards off from becoming tier 1. That's how I would look at it. And maybe those cards need to be printed, or maybe the cards exist, but you don't know which cards to bring in, which cards to bring out from Gatherer. But the deck is there. So I think if a deck can get like this far, it can move. It's just, I don't know how many cards away from making it all the way. So anyway, that's what I think about just like basically any tier 3 deck. Great question. Kion says, do you think that we can still test other splashes on Merfolk, or is Simic the best one yet? I wanted to try White Splash using Luris, not as a companion. Anything is possible. Yes, you can test all the splashes. The matter is like cost, time, do you have the right build? Like I've been doing a lot of experimenting here, but I can't experiment forever. And like maybe there's a lot of luck involved when you're experimenting. It is possible that you have the best 75 your first draft around, but then you have a terrible league and you just chalk it up, or you just assume that your deck is garbage, and then you change it when in fact the deck might have been good in the first place, but you didn't play enough reps with it to discover that it actually was good. So there's a lot of luck also involved with experimentation, but I think a lot of the other splashes are possible. Definitely Red, I think, should receive more attention. There was a Twitter post not too long ago about Leyline of Combustion in a blue-red Merfolk deck. See if I can get Leyline of Combustion out. So, but the point is, it's like it was a blue-red list that went 4-1, and Leyline of Combustion is double red, 2 colorless. It basically says if the opponent, whenever you or another, or at least one other permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, Leyline of Combustion deals 2 damage to that player. So like, screw you, like Mono Red Prowess, screw you, Walking Ballista. You want to make those targets, you're going to like sacrifice your entire life to do it. So like that was a pretty interesting innovation. I didn't even have this on my radar at all. And anyway, four copies of this was in that sideboard of the blue-red Merfolk deck. But this is a really good example, is that there's so much room for improvement. Like when I think of the Black Splash, the only cards that come to mind are like the really popular cards that you see in other decks like Death Shadow and Jund. But there could be like a million black cards in Gatherer that are maybe not the best for Death Shadow and Jund, but might be really good for Merfolk, and I just don't know they exist. Like Leyline of Combustion, who the hell would play this card? No one wants to play this card. No one's interested in this card, but maybe in Merfolk it's good, because if you want to kill our creatures, which people do all over the place, it's going to come at a hefty punishment. And by the way, even if you try to destroy the Leyline of Combustion, you get damaged, because it's whenever you or at least one other permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or an ability. The Leyline of Combustion is very interesting in the modern Merfolk deck. So like, there's a lot of and make no mistake, blue-red Merfolk does get a result once in a while, more often than blue-white Merfolk or blue-black Merfolk, off the back of things like Magus of the Moon and Lightning Bolt. So anyway, just throwing that out there. I'm trying Blue-White with Lurrus main board. I'll post the list later. I'm new to Magic the Gathering Online, though, but started to try it out a bit and tune it. Oh, this is for kiosk. Yeah, the Blue-White Lurrus is still is possible. Maybe that's where you could be. It's just hard for Merfolk as a deck to get Lurrus in play and start getting value. We would likely need Ether Vial, but then we have to take it up to 3, which is very awkward, but still possible. Maybe we can, yeah, maybe. Well, I mean, I more or less reserve the get dunked on for the mana base, but maybe once in a while we can have a mana traders get dunked on instant replay as well. Nikachu, how do you feel about spirits in the modern meta? I think I answered that already. Let me just move on. Let's see. Remember, if you have any questions, you can @ Nikachu MTG, or you can give 3 question marks before the question, 3 question marks afterwards. Just helps me find the questions. Hypnotic Sprite works great with Coco, folks, since we hold up mana more frequently. Yes, and that was the thing that I wanted to try to create. I wanted to create a dynamic where when I'm passing the turn, they don't know what I'm about to do. Maybe I've Collected Company. Maybe I have Force Negation. Maybe I have Hypnotic Sprite. And the wider your range is when you're passing the turn, the way harder it is for your opponent to play around it. Because if you pass with 4 mana up with Simic Merfolk, and they know I've Collected Company, then they can reasonably just assume I just have Collected Company, or they have to play around Merfolk Trickster. So just a very narrow range of cards. But if we increase the range with Hypnotic Sprite, if we increase the range with like Brazen Borrower and stuff like that, now it becomes very difficult to play around all our holdings. It's also hard to play around Collected Company, period. Because, hey, I don't know what's going to come out. They don't know what's going to come out. Will I play Brazen Borrower today? I'm not, actually. I really miss it on the Monday stream. I don't like to auto scoop to Ensnaring Bridge. I don't like to auto scoop to Ensnaring Bridge, but yep, I'm going to still scoop. I'm going to auto scoop to Ensnaring Bridge still. 3 or 4 Coco for Simic Merfolk testing today. I will still stick with 3. 4 is a little bit much. Even 4 Master of Waves is a little bit much. It will be clunky in your hand. I think 3 is a nice balance between like how much mana I'm using in the deck and how many of this card I want, how often I want to see this card. Because I do not want to flood out. I don't really want to flood out on this card because I don't have the mana for it. I'm only playing with 20 lands, so it's like pretty clunky by default. Ooh, Serious D. Oh, it's showing up for another live. Damir has the potential, Dimir Merfolk, but there isn't that many people dedicated enough for it to push the numbers. Also, it would really be nice if we had another land. When the Damir Horizon land comes out, we're probably going to talk a little bit more about Dimir Merfolk. It's going to be way more playable when that land comes out. Does Chance for Glory see play in Modern? I don't know. I don't even know what this is. It sounds like a pony card, though. Oops, chance. Well, there was one user that used this card. Someone submitted a deck list utilizing this thing. It was a Mardu combo deck / attrition based deck. Creatures you control are indestructible. Take an extra turn after this one. At the beginning of that turn's end step, you lose the game. So you'll have to see. I don't know if the user is here watching. Submit your deck list with Chance for Glory, because you're the only deck that's utilizing Chance for Glory. Do I consider historic a pony format? Excellent question. And the answer is no, because it's going to be supported by Wizards of the Coast. They're going to be using this format to help you get reach Mythic Championships and stuff like that. So if you perform really well in historic, that's a route to the Pro Tour. And it's probably going to be a premier. Aren't they holding like a big tournament soon? Something to that effect? Like historic is going to be a Wizards supported competitive format. So the answer is no. Although it does look like a pony format sometimes. And where is it? Tuxedo. It's not a pony format, but it has some very serious issues. But it has serious issues because it's not a pony format. That's the deal. There are a lot of competitive players there, and if you play to win, it's going to be disrupted. That's for sure. And with that, that sounds like a great time to take a delicious cup of coffee. I always have some water and coffee to complement themselves. As long as historic costs as much as it does, it won't survive. It's definitely being harsh on the wallet. It's tough. It is a bit tough playing on Arena because you can't borrow cards, you can't rent cards, you just get these wild cards. So you spend all this money on wild cards, and then if they ban a key part of your deck, basically the rest of your deck is rendered useless. It's a really good segue to just remind everyone that you can borrow cards on Mana Traders, on Magic the Gathering Online. And if they ban anything, who cares? You just borrow another deck. ManaTraders.com. I'm so clever. Wait, where's my other branding? Coffee and MTG. There we go. Don't forget those coupon codes. I was thinking of using a more clever coupon code like Get Dunked On or something like that. Dunk on coupon. What do you think of white mid-range grindy deck in Modern? Always love that color combo, but seems underwhelming. Well, I'm probably going to have a video out either today or tomorrow. Not on white mid-range, because well, okay. First off, Death and Taxes is the thing. You can play Death and Taxes. That's a thing. In some of the better versions, you utilize Eldrazi, so it's got sort of a two-color deck, colorless and mono white. So anyway, that's a possibility. But if you really like white and you like something of a mid-range feel, mono white tokens is a new deck on the block. Utilizing like mono white tokens is a new deck, and it's really cheap to get into. For less than 100 ticks, you can play that deck. Most of the money is actually in Horizon lands. I'm gonna have a video out soon about this deck. I don't know if that's for you, but it has like a mid-range feel to it. It's not particularly aggro. It has it paces itself. It's a bit slow, but aside from that, and I wouldn't say it's super grindy. I think people have to interact with it. But aside from that, your best bet is Death and Taxes, and it's okay. It's okay. Not super well positioned, but not unplayable. Considered Noble Hierarch for Coco Folk. When Oko was legal, I played 3 to 4 Coco, 4 Oko, and Noble was just great there. We don't have anything good to ramp into by turn 3, so I've played extensively with Collected Company and Noble Hierarch, and my conclusion is that Noble Hierarch is a liability against the attrition-based decks. If you need to be fast in the format, it's fine. If you need to grind out decks, which we do right now against Eldrazi-tron, against Jund, against Death Shadow, you need the threat density, and Noble Hierarch is just air. It's like more copies of Aether Vial. So even though you ramp into Collected Company faster, they just ignore Noble Hierarch, and you end up with less threats overall. You just end up with a pile of mana and Noble Hierarch. So in the end, you're going to get eaten up by the attrition-based decks. That's my opinion about Noble Hierarch in Merfolk. Maybe it could become well positioned, but overall it just makes your deck less threat dense. Good morning, Willie Hall from the Will Hall Experience. Yeah, well, back then, turn 2 Oko was good. I'm not going to doubt that, but we don't got Oko anymore. We don't have as good things to do on turn 2. I mean, turn 2 Mara Regery is not very impressive. Can the new Teferi be better than Jace the Mind Sculptor? Hard to tell. I don't know. Jace the Mind Sculptor is still a pretty damn good card. Like it's really, really strong. But there's a lot of upside to Teferi as well. It's hard to tell. I can't give a clear answer to that. And I still think the new Teferi still has to prove itself. Jace the Mind Sculptor has proven itself. Did the guy use discontinuity? Discontinuity. No, they did not use this card. It was a Mardu deck. Was thinking how to update old Boggle deck and make it more fun. Would like to know if there's other good combos with it. So what is this? As long as it's your turn, the spell cost. Oh, this is the end the turn card. But anyway, no, they did not use discontinuity with like the glory card, chance for glory. No, it was not used. But in Boggles, I don't know what kind of fun cards there are in Boggles. I don't know, going Bant seems fun if you want to like switch it up. There's like a lot of cool cards in the blue-white colors if you want to change something. Platinum Angel is very difficult to play in Boggles because it just costs way too much mana. Good morning, Madcap Skills. Augustin Lacastro. What about Reclamation in Modern? You mean what do you mean by Reclamation? Is that a card? Or you mean Wilderness Reclamation? That sees play. Like, we already see... this card already sees play in Modern. It's played in the Sultai decks, the Sultai Snow decks. They play this card. I even saw a list a little while ago playing with Nexus of Fate in the same deck. So this card does see play. Yeah, it's a Modern playable card. I actually saw play for a long time, just wasn't in any Tier 1 decks until recently the Snow decks pushed it to Tier 1. And yeah, I think it was it was the Snow decks that pushed it to Tier 1. All right, so now it is deck list review time. So submit your deck list. Please submit your deck list right now, and we will start the review. The wonderful deck list review. Chris plays more. Really quick on the gun here. This is the Dimir list of the mono black rogues. The original list was meant to play for fun as they usually play E-Tron or humans. Want to try to push this Dimir list to be more competitive, but it isn't easy. Your input more than welcome. Okay, interesting. All right, Dimir Logos. Again, this Changeling Outcast. We're seeing this a lot on this channel. Slitherblade cannot be blocked. Oh, it's a rogue. Interesting. So Thieves Guild Enforcer, Flash, but no evasion. At least not yet. Ghostly Pilferer. Whenever it becomes untapped, you can pay 2. If you do draw a card, whenever an opponent casts a spell from anywhere other than their hand, draw a card. And discard a card, Ghostly Pilfer can't be blocked this turn. This card's great. This card's awesome. Very strangely, it can be blocked. Look what's going on in the image here, people. This creature is going through a fucking wall. It's going through a wall. Why can you block this creature? How can you block any spirit? I mean, the thing is basically dead already. So anyway, that's a weird flavor fail in my opinion. But card looks really strong. Una's Blackguard. There's Battlefield and Brazen Borrower, and then Stink Drinker Bandit. So 4 Fatal Push, 2 Inquisition, 3 Thoughtseize, 3 Drown in the Loch. Castle Lochwain, Island, Marsh Flats, Pluto Delta. 4 Pluto Delta, good. 3 Swamp, 1 Urborg, 4 Watery Grave. Grafdigger's Cage, Inquisition, 2 Relic, Thoughtseize, 4 Damping Sphere. That's good. I don't know if Mana Leak is the best card in the sideboard though. 2 Dismember. I'm not sure, but I think Unmoored Ego might be like a really good card for this sort of list. Like that just rips apart a lot of like combo decks. It might be better than Mana Leak. Like how much counterspells do you need? Maybe you're not playing with that many counterspells, to be honest. You just have Drown in the Loch, which is hard to turn on, by the way. I mean, I guess you can just destroy the creatures, but it really depends on your opponent having cards in their graveyard, and you have no... Do you have a good way of, like... I guess you have Thieves Guild Enforcer, right? Enters the battlefield, your opponent mills 2 cards. Okay, you got something. So this is, like, basically the Thought Scour. Okay, that's good enough. My concern is, like, pushing damage and winning, because you don't have a really good way of doing it. You have a very... Each other rogue you control enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter. Is there any way we can, like, buff these creatures? Because that's what's gonna make or break this deck. There's just, like, no... There's no beef. There's no beef. Does anyone have any idea how to get the beef in this deck? Is there a Lord for rogues at all? Like, this is our problem here. This is the main problem, because these are all weak, crappy creatures. This is a small, crappy creature. This is like, it doesn't deal enough damage. Your clock is like you win by turn 7 or something. So we need... So either you find, like, the appropriate lords, like Metallic Mimic absolutely is not going to do it, or you need to replace, I would say, about 7 to 8 cards for, like, just a big, beefy win condition, because you need that. Because if you don't have a big, beefy win condition, you're just gonna die. Like Brazen Borrower is not a bad clock, but this is, like, probably the only good creature you have in the air with evasion. Like, Ghostly Pilfer would be fine if it had evasion, but it doesn't. So there's going to be a lot of situations, like, and these things are unblockable, but they're way too small. So something needs to get gutted. You have to have a win condition in here. So I don't mind the idea of everything that you're doing. Fatal Push, Inquisition, Thoughtseize, this is all fine stuff. But Stink Drinker is a lord. I wouldn't say this is a lord. It gets +2/+1, right? Oh no, whenever you lord... Oh, I see. Whenever a rogue you control attacks and isn't blocked, it gets +2/+1 until end of turn. So that helps with these things, and that's it? Nothing else has, like, really good evasion. No, these have good evasion. Okay, Drinker Bandit, fine. We need 4 more. You can't, the soul of your deck can't be based on this one card. You know? Merfolk has, like, usually 12 lords at least they're playing to help push damage. Do I prefer Path or Descent? Oh, I think this is regarding something else. Cloak and Dagger. Whenever a rogue creature comes into play, you may attach Cloak and Dagger. It gets +2/+0 and Shroud. Cloak and Dagger probably is a bit too cute, though, for Modern. So, like, you don't need another Lord, but you do need another win condition. I don't know what that is. Like, maybe it can be a fairy? You have you have some fairies. You don't have that many fairies. Changeling Outcast is a fairy. But anyway, that is... so I don't know what that win condition is, but something has to be gutted for one more very large creature. Not to mention, like, this thing can die easily to a lot of stuff. Thoughtseize, Inquisition, Fatal Push. I think the rest of this is okay. I have no problem. So remove 4 cards for at least one, because that would be my... I think if you play this deck a lot, you realize, I'm having trouble closing out the game. I'm having trouble, like, winning. So you definitely need either, like, larger creatures with evasion, because these are very small, or you need to take out 4 cards from the main deck and put, like, some big bomb at, I don't know, 4 mana, 3 mana. Choose what you want it to be, but, like, that is what that's the only, like, criticism I can give. And maybe Mana Leak in the sideboard could be something else. Like, that seems like a pretty crappy counter spell. There's got to be better options for blue and black. But anyway, thank you very much for sharing the list. And I wish I could give, like, it can be just like a random, really strong blue-black card, but I don't know what that is at the moment. Anyway, thanks for sharing. Now we're going to go to Odd Parsley. Odd Parsley, your link is no good. Just sends me to, like, nothing. Sorry, Odd Parsley. So we're going to move on to Zigel. Everyone should check their links before they submit them. You gotta submit the links properly. Oops, copy, paste. All right, so we've got devoted to, what is it, K to the R? Oh, Night of the Reliquary. Okay, so we've got some night action here. Birds of Paradise, Corsair Crewfix, Devoted Druid, Duskwatch Recruiter. So we've got what appears to be Counters Company, Noble Hierarch, Ramanap Excavator, Scavenging Ooze, Shahai, Voice of Plenty, Vizier of Remedies, and Walking Ballista. Land is whatever's. Collected Company, Finale of Devastation. So off the top, it looks like a good, solid list. I actually think this list looks really good. So here's the question. How much different is this from what, what's his name? Laplacian is doing? Let me see if I can quickly check his list out. So far, the list looks great. This list looks great. I have no problems with any of this. I think the list looks very, very good. Maybe it needs more Horizon canopies. I don't know. But you're like a multicolored deck, so maybe you cannot support that. So Laplacian is winning a lot with Devoted Devastation, and you're a very similar deck. So I just want to pull up exactly what he's doing right now. So he's on million. He has a very, very consistent deck, but this is more combo oriented. So whatever. I'll just leave this here. He's doing incredibly well with Devoted Devastation. He has a very high win rate. He's crushing it. So for anyone who wants to know what like the Devoted Devastation deck looks like in like super pure raw combo power, this is what it is. But this is devoted to Night of the Reliquary. And overall, I think you've got a good toolbox deck that still can leverage the Devoted and Vizier of Remedies combo. So I have nothing against this list at all. I think for the most part, you've captured the core of what Devoted Devastation is, and you've got like a big beefy creature to win in a value-oriented game in the case that you cannot combo off. So anyway, I think it's a good list. I don't have any feedback. Does anyone else have any feedback? I don't know if anyone can see the list properly. They got maybe. Does anyone have any ideas for the sideboard? Maybe more Plague Engineers, because this is very strong. I like the idea that you can utilize Magus of the Moon if you think you can. No Uro equals bad. I don't think so. I don't think this deck can utilize Uro. But anyway, I actually don't think there's anything wrong here. I don't think there's anything wrong. I think it's a fine built toolbox deck. It's great stuff. Thanks for sharing. Who was this anyway? This was Zigel. Thanks for sharing, Zigel. You're on Coffee and MTG, the morning live show where we do Q&A and Decklist review. So grab yourself a cup of coffee. We're already getting into the Decklist review part. The part everyone loves this. I underestimated how popular this would be. Every day now, there's like so many submissions that I can't like get to. Just impossible. So good luck with that that deck, Zigel. So now we're looking at fairies. In Modern by, who is it? Excasteel. All right, Excasteel. Let's see. Spellstutter Sprite, Brazen Borrower, Vendilion Click, Mistbind Click, 2 Jace the Mind Sculptor. I see where we're going here. Got the we've got, okay. I have a really good question. Excasteel. Do you want to play a blue-black control deck, or do you want to play fairies? This is a very important question, because you got something in between both. And for the most part, these lists do not survive, have like barely survived the harsh winters of Modern, because they're like middling around in the between both of them. I'm just very curious, what part of this deck appeals to you more, the control aspect or the fairy aspect? Because I mean, as is, the numbers are all fine, and I think you got all the right numbers, you got the right lands. This is all good. This is all fine. I have no problems with any of this. And I guess you can't support Mystical Sanctuary very well, which is a huge disadvantage actually if you like control. Engineer Explosive, Ceremonious Rejection, Flusterstorm, Nihil Spellbomb, Collective Brutality, Ashiok, Liliana, Last Hope, Damnation, Kalitas. So here's the deal. Like, the deck is built fine, but there are certain aspects of this deck that are very bad. So Spellstarter Sprite does not have enough support in today's Modern metagame to be good. It is just like, it's so dead so often. Very, like, for example, it's not... Counterspells aren't very good right now, period. And the fact that this counterspell comes attached to a 1/1 creature just doesn't matter anymore. Again, it's a very weak clock. So if I wanted to rely on Spellstarter Sprite more, I need like a lot more fairies in this deck, which then leads me to believe that, you know, we should be pushing more in the fairy direction than the control direction. Brazen Bar is great. Great card. Vendilion Click is great. Mistbind Click is like awkward. I heard it's good against Tron, but there aren't a lot of Tron decks right now. I don't think it would be that great against Eldrazi Tron. I think they have a lot of answers to this. So, like, I have nothing against the possibility of playing fairies, but when I see the fairies deck, it's like a very watered down version of what could be a control deck. Like, for example, if you just gutted the fairies and you played how do I put it? You just splash green, you'd have Sultai control, and you would do basically everything that you do here. Plus, you have access to Mystic Sanctuary. You get rid of Spellstarter Sprite, add Mystic Sanctuary, and you just have like some Brazen Borrowers, some Vendilion Clicks. Like, it's basically, you take out Mistbind Click and Spellstarter Sprite, and you got like a completely different deck. And take out Bitter Blossom, and then you add Uros. Better to blue-black control with Bitter Blossom and Vendilion Click and Brazen Borrower. That might be true, but I don't know if you get enough out of it. So my deal with fairies as a control deck, because it's usually played as a control deck, and I've said it a million times. It's funny, Bitter Blossom doesn't see play in Modern, but I constantly see this card being submitted to me in these Decklist reviews. Bitter Blossom is very badly positioned in Modern right now. It's very bad. It's a very bad card. You are losing life. You are losing tempo. You don't gain anything, really. And, like, we have a very aggressive metagame with Burn and Prowess and Eldrazi Tron, and there's Trample out there. There's a lot of ways of getting through Bitter Blossom. But I cannot emphasize enough, this card is just not good anymore. It's like, it's a pretty bad card. I don't know what deck really wants Bitter Blossom. I know traditionally it was in this sort of deck, but we don't see fairies like being very successful in Modern at the moment. Then that's not to say I don't think there could be a fairy control version out there, but I don't know if it looks like this anymore. And like, what else I could say? The Takahashi guy, I can't remember his first name. He also dropped fairies not too long ago. Just couldn't compete. Not to say that I think there can be a fairies deck, but I would prefer that it was more fairies than it was control. That's all. That's all I would like to say. So that's all. Again, deck is built fine. The numbers are good. Maybe you can replace this with something else. Like, we have new tools actually for this deck, right? And I think one of the new tools that I really like is Hypnotic Sprite. This is a little expensive. Whoops. This is a little expensive, but like, this is card advantage. And it's good card advantage. And also it counters almost everything, right? At 3 mana, you can basically counter everything. I think this is a more reliable counter spell than, say, the Spellstutter Sprite. Spellstutter Sprite is like not countering anything. It's not good at it anymore. It's actually quite terrible at it. So maybe if I were to give some, like, my only real piece of advice, gut the Spellstutter Sprite, because this card just sucks. add Hypnotic Sprite. I know it's more expensive, but you know what? You have quite a few things to do on the earlier turns of the game anyway, between 4 Fatal Push, 3 Inquisition, 3 Thoughtseize, 3 Giant in the Lock, and 2 Mana Leak. You don't need Spell Stutter Sprite anymore. Go the Hypnotic Sprite route. It's a hard counter spell to a lot of cards. You don't need any fairies in play in order to use this card. I think this is like an improvement to the fairies deck that hasn't been utilized, because when this sort of deck got wiped off the map, Eldraine had just come out. So I mean, I like the addition of Brazen Borrower from Throne of Eldraine. This is excellent. Maybe you should have more of these, because it's a really good clock in the air. I might prefer it more than the Mistbind clicks, but I don't know. Maybe there are some niche situations where you really want Mistbind click, but I mean, this is all I can offer. Or maybe instead of Bitter Blossom, you add the Hypnotic Sprite. One thing's for sure, Hypnotic Sprite belongs in this deck. Definitely belongs in this deck. And I'm telling you, people, I'm really, for a card that is in so many of these deck list reviews and sees no play, that should say something. It should say something. It should say something, in my opinion. But anyway, thanks for submitting the deck list. I hope at least a little bit of my feedback is useful. Okay, we got Mr. Thule. Okay, so Fae of Wishes, Animating Fairy. Target non-artifact you control becomes 0/0 artifact, put 4+1/+1 counters on it. So you get to turn artifacts into creatures, and it's a flying 2/2. Reality Smasher. Well, that escalated really quickly. So it looked like we're at like some sort of a fairy deck, and now all of a sudden we're like an Eldrazi deck. Ulamog, with them, that just what is going on here? Boom, all the way to Ulamog, and Ulamog the Infinite Gyre, Ugin the Ineffable, run away together. So this has got to be some sort of blue. Choose 2 target creatures controlled by different players. Return those creatures to their hand. Owner's hand. Shatter the Sky. Each player who controls a creature with power 4 or greater draws a card, then destroy all creatures. Is that good in this deck? You have stuff that's bigger than 4. Each player who controls a creature with power 4 or greater draws a card. So the idea is you want to draw cards and destroy all the creatures at the same time? I don't get it. Cleansing Nova, destroy all creatures or destroy all artifacts and enchantments. That's interesting. Darksteel Relic, Expedition Map, Lucky Clover. Whenever you cast an adventure, instant, or sorcery spell, copy it. You may choose new targets. That's interesting. Midnight Clock. Retributive Wand, and you have 23 lands, playing Glacial Fortress. Do you have enough islands for this? You have... Enters the battlefield tapped unless you control a plains or an island. You have very few islands for this. Seachrome Coast. Okay, so first things first. I would replace Glacial Fortress with Seachrome Coast, because this is more reliable. You do not have the mana base for, I think, Glacial Fortress. You have literally 7 lands, which you may not have at the beginning of the game, and the rest of it are non-islands. Like, this is not an island or a plain. So your Glacial Fortress is coming into play tapped really often. Yeah, Jason Dog. Oh dear, the one of Tron lands. Well, that's how it is. I think I've seen some lists that are sort of like that. Maybe you should have more. Like, why have 4 Urza's Tower? You should probably split it up a little bit more amongst the mana base. So like 2 Urza's Mine, 2 Urza's Power Plant, 3 Urza's Tower is probably more balanced. Because if they ghost quarter one of these, you're a goner, you know. So definitely less Glacial Fortresses. And do you need Darksteel Citadel? You're playing with some you're only playing with some Eldrazi though. Because I was about to suggest, you know what you should have a one of Eldrazi Temple. So that just something you can like search up with Expedition Map. So I would squeeze in 1 Eldrazi Temple in here, so you can ramp into your Reality Smasher. Which, by the way, I don't even know what is it doing in here, Mr. Thule. There's 4/4 indestructible artifacts that draw on Shadow the Sky. Oh, I get it, but that's a bit fancy. That's very fancy. That's too fancy in my opinion. Why is Reality Smasher in this deck? The whole deck is too fancy. I know it's fancy.deck. That's okay. We're going to do our best to help make this deck as consistent as possible. It's like animate artifact with Eldrazi ramp. I do not understand this deck. Mr. Thule has, at the very least, created something controversial. And we haven't even gotten to the sideboard. We don't even know what they can get from the sideboard. Fancy is the best word to describe this deck. So we're getting... Okay, so mana base could be better. Maybe even go to 24 lands, because you seem to be a pretty mana-hungry deck. I would definitely play 1 Eldrazi Temple. You got to scrap 2 Glacial Fortresses for 2 Seachrome Coasts, because this is going to be a more reliable land. And probably just scrap the Glacial Fortress, period. Just play with, like, 4 Hollowed Fountain. I think that would be fine. Or maybe you can keep 1 Glacial Fortress after you've added 1 Hollow Fountain. This is the explanation for Reality Smasher. It is there because I had 2 lying around. So this is like what's left in my my trade binder deck. So you have the fairy find you may choose a non-creature card you own from outside the game, reveal it, and put it in your hand. Okay, that's interesting. So you have some of the Tron lands in your sideboard that you can get with the Fae of Wishes. It's pretty innovative, to be honest. But you might as well have one of the towers there as well. Like, there's no point in having 2 of these here and not the third one. And I would definitely give yourself more room to, like, just draw randomly the other ones. Shadow Spear, Dovin's Veto, Run Away Together. I think we can do better than Run Away Together. You don't ever want to return your own creature to your hand. Sword of Fire and Ice, Mass Manipulation, Mime, Facture. Choose target permanent opponent control. Search that player's library for a card with the same name and put in whatever. Shadow the Sky, Cleansing Nova, Time Wipe. Return a creature you control to its owner's hand and destroy all creatures. Again, I'm not a fan of, like, if anything, you should play with just indestructible creatures, not these cards that return cards back to your hand and then destroy all creatures, because this is a waste of time. It's always going to be a waste of time returning stuff back to your hand. So you should maybe be on a lookout for stuff that's indestructible. Like, this is indestructible, that's fine. This is indestructible, that's fine. So find more indestructible cards that you can have in play, like, period, so that you can take advantage of these other, like, board wipes. I don't know what those are, though. Time Wipe. In Bolus's Clutches, you control enchanted permanent. Sure, why not? Planar Cleansing. Eldrazi Conscription. Ugin the Spirit Dragon. If anything, this should be in the main deck. This is a very strong card. Whatever, you have it in the sideboard. So I would highly suggest, like, removing these Runaway Together cards and just have stuff that's more interactive. Counter spells, other bounce spells. You have to target 2 target creatures controlled by different players. If you don't have a creature in play, you can't cast this card. You don't even have enough. You don't even have that many creatures in play. I understand you want to recycle maybe Fae of Wishes, but, like, it's too fancy. Screw Runaway Together. Make that card run away by itself. And then adjust the mana base, as I said, because you have Glacial Fortress will come into play, tap too much, play more Seachrome Coast, more Hollow Fountains, and diversify the Tron lands better. This is too much at risk. And good luck with you, Mr. Thule. Good luck. I think we all enjoyed checking out Mr. Thule's deck. Hey, if it can win, I'm sure it wins spectacularly. I would hate to lose to any of those cards. It's true, actually. Mr. Thule, a good replacement. Teferi might be a replacement for Runaway Together. Yes. Yes, it would. I just used it as it was around. Might order them soon for this if I get some development done. Teferi, any of the Teferis would be great in that list. Any of the Teferis. All right, let's check out one more list. And then I'm going to get into the gameplay for today. If nothing else, Mr. Thule, you have the most fabulous list I've ever seen on this show. It was absolutely spectacular. So thank you very much for sharing it. So we've got a list with Lurrus in it. So this is Merfolk, Blue-White Merfolk with Lurrus by Matt Maddock. So we got 2 Hypnotic Sprite, 4 Lord of Atlantis, 4 Silvergill Adept, 2 Deputy of Detention. I don't know how reliable this card is in our deck, just because, like, we have very poor ways of protecting our Deputy of Detention. Very poor ways. A lot of removal out there. A lot of removal. And Lurrus can't even get Deputy back, so I think that's bad synergy. Lurrus of the Dream Den. Okay, that's fine. Rejury, 2 Master of Waves, 2 Force Negation, 4 Ether Vial. On Thin Ice. Okay. Enchant a Snowland you control. When it enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until On Thin Ice leaves the battlefield. Do we have enough white mana sources for this? The moment I see Cavernous Souls, I'm assuming the answer is no, but let's go check it out. Oh, you're not playing with Mutavault. Okay. So 3 Flooded Strand, 1 Hollow Fountain. This is 4, 6, 10. You're too low on white mana sources to cast cards like this. Try to get it to like 12-ish. So replace the Cavernous Souls with more white mana sources, or replace 2 Snowlands. But the problem is with replacing the Snowlands, then you get weaker to Blood Moon. Like, I understand what you're trying to do, but you know what? If you're a blue-white deck, I think you have to just risk it. And it's not even that big of a risk. Just play more fetch lands that can fetch out the islands, and you'll be fine there. I think that's your best shot. Well, so Tuxev says, I'd rather play Path in that slot. There is advantages to On Thin Ice. For example, if you're up against Prowess, I don't really want to ramp them. There's a lot of decks I don't want to ramp, and On Thin Ice has its advantages because you don't ramp your opponent. So what can I say? Like, I think Path to Exile has its own problems, so I'm open to experimenting with On Thin Ice. If On Thin Ice obviously isn't working, it's too clunky, it's too vulnerable to removal, go with the Path to Exile, because there is definitely, I would say, against Jund, they'll just blow this up. Abrupt Decay, Assassin's Trophy, they've got their ways. And Path to Exile will still exile the Tarmogoyf, and they can't get it back with their own Lurrus. So you definitely, to even just play this card, you need more white mana sources. I would say 2 more. Sideboard, Burrington Forge Tender. Protect Pro Red. Prevent all damage that a red source of your choice would deal this turn. That's pretty cool, actually. That's a pretty cool idea. You know, 1 mana, just perpetually block like Swift Spear or something. Not necessarily perpetually. They can play Crash Through, but not bad. Okay, so you're diversifying your Graveyard Hate. Not bad. Not a bad idea. 3 Rest in Peace is usually ugly. 2 Rest in Peace is a really good number. 1 Relic is good. 2 Damping Sphere, 3 Deprive, 1 Disenchant. I actually like that a lot too. Ashok Dream Render, 2 Ashok. So that's fine. I just hope that this works out. 2 Lurrus. Sorry. I don't believe in the Deputy. I think it's too vulnerable. I would play more Hypnotic Sprites, maybe a 1-drop. 2 Master of Waves, that would be my suggestion. And maybe if you're only going to play 2 Force Negation in the main deck, you should have 2 Force Negation in the sideboard. It's a tight sideboard. You don't have a lot of traditional counter magic for decks. If you don't need it, then I guess you don't need it. But aside from that, it seems like I would just change the mana base for the most part. Compensating for not playing Benthic. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, he does have there. Yeah, there are fetches for the Snowland. The idea is that Forge Tender is the 1-drop post board versus Burn and Prowess. Well, the thing is, we mostly need a 1-drop to just race decks that we need to race, like Amulet. Like, that's the general reason why we want 1-drops in the first place, or even to race Stoneblade. Like, I think we have a reasonably good matchup against Stoneblade, because if we go turn 1 creature into turn 2 Lord into turn 3 Lord, we're going to deal a sufficient amount of damage before the Batterskull even gets online. So it's not like I would just say this is just good for... I don't think this is a good 1-drop for the deck, but it is a good 1-drop against those aggro decks. Only 2 Force is somewhat budget. I need to up my rent limit to afford 4. All right, that's fair. It's fair stuff. Suave Gaming says, Unsettled Mariner. Where's Unsettled Mariner? I mean, maybe that could be better than Deputy of Detention, but I found that Unsettled Mariner was not good in a deck that was slow. Because if you don't have a 1-drop, then your opponent is under no pressure to kill anything. They can take their time to get 1 more land to kill Unsettled Mariner and then kill anything they need to on the board. So Unsettled Mariner is just, in my opinion, a pretty vulnerable card. But that's gonna be it for today. But don't worry, if you're watching, we're gonna translate straight into gameplay. We're gonna play some Modern Merfolk today. But for everyone watching on the replay on YouTube, that's going to be our show. It was great. We had a great conversation. We saw some very interesting decks. Thank you, Mr. Thule, for submitting your deck. It was it was a lot of fun to analyze. And yeah, we're going to thank everyone out there for submitting your questions, your inquiries, and submitting your deck list. And I will see you at the next cup. Thanks, everyone, for dropping by. Take care.